During my career as a chef, I've had an opportunity to feed an awful lot of people, including other chefs. And one of the people who I've befriended is David Bouley. He and his wife, wonderful couple. Couldn't be nicer. David is one of the most respected chefs in the world. Many consider him America's greatest chef. Very high rating in the world of chefs for his outstanding and unique contributions. But there was a time when David himself was not in great health, and he primarily served French cuisine, but also lots of animal proteins. Not so today. In fact, David has made an enormous transition to healthy plant-based diets. In his next restaurant, he's going to actually be growing a lot of the food. As you see now, a lot of restaurants will have their gardens of fresh herbs and vegetables and microgreens and baby greens up on the roof. So they harvest them and bring them downstairs and prepare them for people, which is wonderful. And that's what he's doing as well. David has traveled all over the world to find out the healthiest foods and the different cuisines in Japan and Greece and Spain, etc. So he's really become extremely educated with the idea of let food be your medicine. And he has a lot of good stories about people that he has had as customers who he's helped with diet translate that disease into wellness, as he has for himself. So David is a friend, and he invited me to come down to his test kitchens where he was doing a food seminar. And I was the keynote speaker, and there were about 40 food experts there. Some were chefs, some were just people who were really interested in gourmet vegan cooking. So on the wall behind the people were all these photos from my cookbooks, and then I would discuss the role of food in health and disease. And what I didn't know was that I had a mic on, so I thought it was for people there. It was actually for all the people listening at home. And the numbers were staggering. In any case, I did a documentary on David because he's just a uniquely focused person. I mean, his whole life and his wife, their very loving couple, is food. And so I did a documentary about the art of healthy cooking. And in it you see David and I down at the farmer's market, and he literally goes to the farmer's market and finds the freshest herbs and vegetables, and he knows by the smell of something and how it feels and whether he wants to use it, and then he'll have it all sent over to Bouley's, his restaurant. In any case, it's always fun having a chef as a friend, because then you're always coming up with ideas of how to do something different and more original and healthier. Taking a look at my career in different areas that I've not explored or discussed ever before in a 53-year career of serving the public interest, as a consumer activist, as a journalist. Most people are not even aware of many of my careers, like as an organic farmer, or having animal sanctuaries for the last 50 years. The story begins back in a small town of West Virginia, small city, Parkersburg. And my mother, who worked most of her adult life as a the secretary to the First Christian Church, a Baptist church there in town, but she also loved to cook. And as a kid, I was interested in food. I was also interested in eating vegetables. Now back then, vegetables were, well, they weren't like they are today. Yeah, I can remember our family had a victory garden in our backyard, little backyards where they grew tomatoes and peppers and some lettuce. And the tomatoes always tasted terrific. I remember you just, wash a tomato, cut it in half, put on some salt and eat it. And same way with watermelon. We ate watermelon with salt back then. And we were running all over the place, and we had natural immunity. So we were a pretty healthy lot. They allowed us to stay out and play until dark, and we had to come in before dark. We were not supervised and micro-supervised. It was just a wonderful time to be a kid. We'd be hungry, we would come home for lunch and eat and go back out and play. Well, my mom would cook, and as she cooked, I would get up on a chair and watch her cook. I was always interested in how food got made and put on a table. And over a period of time, I would try dishes. I would try things, generally making mistakes. But in the end, I developed this passion for cooking. So when I came to New York City, it wasn't long before I opened a health food store, Creative Health Food. I believe it is the oldest surviving health food store, by the way, which is still there at 108th and Broadway in the New York area. That's over 53 years it's been there. But I thought to myself, we should be growing some of the food since I can't find any food. There was no organic produce around anywhere. So I bought a little farm upstate in Stone Ridge, and it was called Stone Ridge because it was all stones. It was hard to grow anything, but there was a small lake of 4 acres, and I dredged the lake of all the muck that had been there for who knows how long. And that muck dried out over a period of half a year, and then that became the basis of topsoil. And I began to grow organic vegetables in abundance because that so rich mineral base for that muck was the perfect soil and fertilizer. So then I would take the fresh produce that I would grow and all the other things I would create there, like I would create Essene bread, S-E-S-S-E-N-E. It's a flourless bread. It's good for people who have gluten allergies because there's no gluten. And it's delicious. You can make it savory with chives and garlic and onion and dill and oregano, or you can make it fruit and nuts, where you put in raisins and currants and almonds. And I made both. So I would make all kinds of food up there, grow all kinds of food, including sprouts, and then bring it down to the city, and I would sell all this in the health food store. Then in 1970-71, I opened up the Fertile Earth restaurant. And the idea of the restaurant was that a couple of my buddies who loved cooking and were really good chefs, and myself would have a vegan gourmet menu, limited, and it would change daily. 2 entrees, 2 soups, 2 salads, 2 desserts. That was it. We would limit the menu, but also it was not expensive either. A dish was supposed to run around a meal $10, but a college student came in one day, and he asked about what he could have for $2.50, and I just happened to have been behind the counter, and I said, why? And he said, well, that's all I have. I filled him up a plate and gave him a bowl of soup and a salad and 2 entrees and a dessert. I said, in fact, for you and any of your friends who are students up at Columbia, if you don't have the money, more than $2.50, that's all I'm going to charge. He said, really? He said, I know a lot of friends that would love to eat healthy, they just can't afford it. So from then on, we were packed with college students, even professors. It was a great hangout. We had a sign that says, we not only are making it and preparing it, but we grew it organically in New York State. So we had the Fertile Earth Farm, the health food store across the street from the restaurant, and the restaurant. And I would do lectures on cooking. In fact, one of the best weekends I've ever done was upstate at the Fertile Earth Farm, where I had cooking for a week. We had room for 50 people. We had a great time. Played volleyball, and everybody would, it was very casual, gym shorts, because we'd be running. And then we put together a bunch of homemade picnic tables. And I would teach each person how to make a different dish. And so when lunch came, we might have 50 different entrees and all kinds of salads. And we were all sitting around having a great time. And that's where I was able to see how appreciative young people were. So I started to incorporate cooking and sprouting and juicing and raw foods and probiotics. Mind you, this is in the early 70s to the radio audience. It's long before now everybody's into probiotics. We were into it back then. So then I had a chance to open up another restaurant called Gary's Place, which I did. That was very successful. And it was a big restaurant. We seated over 126 people. And we knocked out some wonderful dishes, really good reviews. And so the place was always packed. In fact, you had to call and get a reservation.
A syndicated radio host, author, and leading authority on health and nutrition, Null opened an organic New York City restaurant with something special in store for the kiddies.
When you see people walk in the door with kids that are bouncing off the wall, I don't want to eat this, I don't want to eat that, and you go over and you say, what would you like? I want a hamburger. We go back and we bring out something, and they chew it, and I say, well, how'd you like the hamburger? It was good. Do you want to try a vegetable burger? No. And I said, well, that was a vegetable burger. And they go, really?
One of the people I was working with to try to create a healthy program for school children in New York, up in Harlem, was Gloria Swanson. And we became friends. Now, she knew all these old retired celebrities who had had their day in the 1920s or 30s or 40s or 50s. So she'd invite them in. I would be invited by people who were the socialites of Park Avenue and Fifth Avenue, wonderful human beings. They were debutantes back in the 1930s, 20s, 40s, 50s, and they invited small dinner parties. I was asked would I do my vegan chef work, like to show how a dinner's made, a gourmet vegan meal. And it was kind of a novelty to them, and I did. And one of my longtime friends, and this is no secret, he's been a friend for 50 years, is Peter Max. And every night when he was in New York, which is most of the time, there'd be a table reserved for Peter. Next to that was some other famous people. But it was just a lot of fun for me to create new dishes. And the idea was keep the menu fresh, keep it always interesting. And that's what I did. And then about 6 years ago, I decided to do a large-size cookbook. It won 4 gold awards. I think it was the most award-winning cookbook in America that year. So that cookbook, the Anti-Arthritis Anti-Inflammatory Cookbook, talked about alkaline versus acid foods and juices, how to get rid of the acidity in your body and hence improve your circulation, which things would create nitric oxide and increase circulation, help your heart, which ones would help your immunity. So I did all that, and that was a monster hit. In fact, when it was on PBS stations, it was the #1 hit. And then that was followed by an imprint with my own books at Skyhorse Publishing. And then I did the one cookbook, again, large-size gourmet original recipes that would help your immune system, that would help your heart, help prevent cancer, all these different conditions. These recipes would help. And every single ingredient in every recipe was meant to help you. And that was a big hit. And then my latest one, Curing the Incurable Cookbook, it's the biggest cookbook. It has a big chapter where more than a dozen board-certified physicians, including Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Neil Barnard, some of the best names in medicine, and especially those who've used diet to cure themselves or cure their patients. Dean Ornish was able to reverse end-stage heart disease, where the 9 patients were requiring a heart transplant, where they have to get a whole new heart. Not one of them had to have it because of his protocols: healthy vegan diet, exercise, stress management. And then I've served up all these original recipes at our retreats and at the anti-aging clinical studies, 2 done in the last 12 months. The one just finished a couple weeks ago. So, in effect, my whole life, I've been cooking, and I've been a chef, owning 3 of the best vegan restaurants, the first gourmet vegan restaurant in American history. In fact, some people say, well, The Source. Well, every time I go to California to appear on television out there, do lectures, I would eat it at this place called The Source. But my Fertile Earth was open 6 months before The Source, because they had some good food out there and nice energy. It was up on Sunset Boulevard, the old Continental Hotel. I used to really enjoy hanging out there. Good vibes all the way around. But people loved hanging out at these places because nothing was rushed. Slow food, beautiful atmosphere. At Gary's place, we'd have different singers. Like one night it would be someone playing violin, another guitar, another folk singing, then jazz. We had all these wonderful musicians come in at 10 o'clock at night and play till closing. So now I'm looking around for another place where I can once again put on the apron and the chef's hat and start cooking all over again, and hopefully inspire some of the younger generation to become vegans and improve their diet using gourmet vegan cooking. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.